Hey everybody, what is up, Wavejump here, and welcome back to another video. Today, I wanted to go ahead and do a quick editing tutorial. Now, I know this won't apply to a lot of my subscribers, but if you own Premiere, you may want to go ahead and, of course, know how to use it to edit. Or if you're looking into getting Premiere to edit, you should probably want to know how to use it. And so I'm going to go ahead and be covering a couple of settings we're going to want to set up when we first open Premiere, and then going ahead and showing some basic editing stuff. I may or may not cut this up into several videos, but no, if it is a longer video, it's going to be a little bit more edited, so you could of course pause and then come back to the video later or something. But anyways, if I create a new thing here, I'm going to click create new, and let's go ahead here, and there's going to be some blurred out stuff on screen because I'm going ahead and putting in where I'm saving my stuff. First off, you're going to want to choose where you save your new project. So when you click new project, you're going to click browse under location and put in a location. I'm going to go ahead here and save this under a folder called Premiere, and we're going to go ahead here and name our first project example editing project. I'm going to be using some old footage for this, but we'll see here. Anyways, you can go ahead and leave basically all these settings the same as they normally would be. This is going to be, by the way, mostly for editing game footage, but anyways, if I go ahead and click OK here, you'll notice it'll go ahead and bring us over into here. By the way, if you're wondering why this video is possible, it's because I upgraded my computer. See the live stream archive if you're curious for more about that. Anyways, so first off, you notice this is what's called our workspace here. So this is what Premiere looks like generally. And we're going to go ahead and first off change some settings. So I'm going to go to Edit, Preferences, General. And on Mac, this will be very similar. It's just going to look very slightly different aesthetically. And some of the keybinds will use Command instead of Control. Anyways, here I'm just going to look through here and let's take a look. So General, that's fine. Highlight color, I like to go ahead and make brighter because I'll go ahead and make it easier to see. Brightness, I like it darker, of course, to make it look better. Audio hardware is good. You could probably leave that as is. Automatically save projects, probably change this down to every 3 minutes. And the reason why is Premiere automatically saves every 15 minutes. What that means is that you might have a huge issue where you end up losing a lot of footage or a lot of progress because Premiere will go ahead and kill your stuff. So do that. Repeat drop frames is fine. All this stuff is basically fine. We're gonna move on down here to media. I personally like it to be at 60 frames per second. And we'll leave default media scaling at none. Anything else here? This should be fine. Media cache. This is where your cache is stored. Again, sorry that there's stuff blurred out, but it's because that's where my files are. I'm gonna personally go ahead here and click automatically delete cache files older than 5 days myself because or 7 days apparently, because I personally won't be editing projects over 7 days. But this goes ahead, and the cache is what goes ahead and stores a bunch of your project files and lets you run things faster. So it creates cache files to go ahead and just run what it remembers your video is. But if you have a faster computer, they're less necessary, and also they take up a lot of storage, so you're going to want to go ahead and maybe delete the stuff. I'm actually going to change this to, yeah, let's just keep it up 7 days actually. Memory doesn't really matter. I personally just say performance. Playback, again, doesn't matter a huge amount. If you want to go ahead and have it so that one of your monitors is dedicated to previewing a video, you just click check on one of these and it's pretty cool. Again, sorry if there's blurred out stuff here. Timeline, you could probably leave this stuff mostly here the same. We'll click render audio while rendering video as well, and that should be good, and the rest should be good. So we're going to click OK, and then we're going to go ahead here and import our footage. So in order to input footage, what you're going to do is you're going to right click under import media to start. In the bottom left here, you're going to click import, and again, sorry there's stuff that's blurred out, but you're going to go ahead and just find your footage and put it in. So I'm going to go, of course, then over to whatever. I'm going to go to my captures folder. Wrong folder. Again, there's going to be a lot of blurring in this video because I'm using my own files. Captures, whatever, and let's find this old file here. Okay, so here we go. So now you have your footage imported, but let's go ahead and go over this interface first before we go ahead and do anything with it. And of course, I'm going to press Command S or Control S, depending on what operating system you're on, to save. Anyways, you'll notice right here, here is our little kind of preview window. This is where we have our source. So if I were to go ahead and click on this, then notice I could actually go ahead and view this up here and preview the video. And I'm actually going to head here and turn the audio down for you so that you don't hear me previewing it as much. It's not super loud. We also have our timeline here. This is what's going to be probably one of the most important parts here. Here is where we have where a lot of our media is stored. So we have, as you can tell here, this is our little project file. Our media browser, this is where we can go ahead and find our files. Libraries, doesn't really ever matter. Effects, we'll go over later, and some other stuff. Markers and history. Now, the first thing I'm going to recommend doing is create yourself a new workspace. So go Window, Workspaces, and actually wait, first, no, we're going to edit this workspace first. So we're going to go Window, and under here, we're going to have the following things checked. We're going to have Audio Track Mixer checked, and this is just changing what was checked from before. We're going to, see, do we need effect control? Yeah, we don't want effect controls and effects, and essential graphics we're going to want to enable. Let's see. We could go ahead here, and then you could probably disable markers. I'm going to keep it on just in case here. And that should be good. So just keep this stuff on, basically. Then we're going to move some stuff around here. So on the bottom, you'll notice you'll have effects, and we're just going to drag the text that says effects up to the top left here, up in this little title bar. And same for essential graphics. We're going to drag that up into this title bar here. And we're just going to grab this little thing and squeeze it down so that we'll see our preview window here. So the window on the top right here is where we can go ahead and preview our stuff. And yeah, basically, I'm just going to move this around into a configuration that I like. You don't have to have the exact same configuration I have, but this I personally just find to be most helpful for what I use most. And I'm going to move back to the normal project window. Okay, so we're going to go Window, Workspaces, save as new workspace, and name it Wave. And now, you notice on the top here, I have this button that says Wave. I can click that and switch to my workspace. So now, in the bottom left here, notice I have my footage. I'm just going to drag that over into this box here, which is the timeline. And when I do that, you notice it created what's called a new sequence. And if I go to sequence settings, right here, sequence settings, you notice I can see some information about it. This is, for example, a 1280 by 720 thing in 30 frames per second. I could change that. Let's say 60 frames per second and 1920 by 1080. With square pixels, you always want square pixels on, basically, because otherwise you'll have some really weird stuff going on. Then the rest of it we'll leave basically the same for now. And okay. You notice one thing that it shrunk this file down. We're going to right click on this little thing here, under V1, and I'll explain what this V1 is later. We're going to click scale to frame size. All right. So if I go ahead here and I shrink down, again, you could just pinch this little thing here, shrink down this area here, and then shrink down like that. Notice we have here, this is what's called our timeline. And if you press, by the way, the button above tab on your keyboard or the button to the left of one, you'll notice it goes ahead and makes this full screen. And this works with any panel, so if I click on here and press that, it'll make it full screen. Same for preview. Preview is probably the most important one you'll want it for. But say we go here, you notice here's what's called our timeline. And if you're unfamiliar with what timelines are little areas where you go ahead and put your clips in. That's where you arrange them. So if I go ahead here and I grab this little thing, these are called tracks. So video 1 and audio 1, for example. If I were to go ahead and drag up the video 1, you'll notice I go ahead and see video 1's stuff. But I'm going to go ahead here, and also I'm going to go up right to this little window, and I'm going to enable continuous video thumbnails. And what you'll notice this did, like, go ahead and see what the thumbnails look like throughout the entire video. And anyways, there we are. So I'm just going to shrink this down here. And we go ahead and press that button again. We're out of full screen. Anyways, so we're going to go ahead and do a couple things. First off, let's add my intro. So I'm going to go right click, again, import. I'm going to select my intro file. And let me go ahead and find that for you. And again, sorry, I muted stuff, but I kind of have to because they're my files. I'm going to drag this over to the right. So the way this works, as time goes on, time moves to the right, like an arrow, right? And so this starts right now at 0 seconds, 0, 0, 0. This is at 15 seconds in. This is at 30 seconds in, 45 seconds in, and 1 minute in. Now, say you want to go ahead and zoom in a little bit so that we instead see, it by each second. I could just press the button plus, not control plus, just plus a bunch. And you'll notice here's 5 seconds and there's 10 seconds. If I do it again, there's 5 seconds, there's 10 seconds. It's a lot better to zoom in oftentimes to go ahead and do more fine edits. But say I grab my intro, right? My intro is oftentimes, first off, a lot louder than this. So we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to shift this over to the right, like so. Now we're going to grab this file called new intro draft1.mp4. We're going to drag this in. You'll notice here, if I try to drag it into video 1, it's going to override this track. and so it just starts in the middle, which is bad. So we're going to go ahead here, and we're going to put it like that. And what that's going to go ahead and do here is that's going to make sure it's not going to override it. But notice if we play this here, it's going to be a bit problematic. Here we go. Watch this. Now, the video started playing under it, and it was way too loud. So let's go ahead and fix both of those things. So first off, let's go ahead here and move this over to the right a little bit. And then what we're going to do is we're going to right-click on this and click Unlink. Now what this is, this just unlinked the video and the audio. So what that does, of course, is that makes it so that you could go ahead and edit the video and audio freely. If you don't do that, if you're, say, for example, trying to trim the video, it would also trim the audio. What we're going to do here is I oftentimes have a lot of extra stuff at the end of my video, so you notice there's a bunch of black stuff there. So I'm just going to find the end of this, and I'm also going to make this bigger. So yeah, if we go right here, I'm just going to go ahead and shrink it down to around, let's say about right here. And then I'm going to go ahead and bring this guy in, just like so. Okay, here we go. And actually, I could probably move both these guys down from video 2 to video 1. Like so. There we are. And again, you'll notice, if we play this, that this music is much louder than this. By the way, this right here is called the playhead. You could scrub it along through time, and it's very nice. But this is way too loud. So there are a couple of things we could do to go ahead and decrease the volume of this thing. And one of the things you'll notice, there's things called audio waveforms. If you don't know how to read them, just know that the more filled in the spaces with this light color, essentially the louder it is. So if we right click, we could first off go click audio gain. And again, this might be a control click, for example, on Mac. And then we could go ahead and adjust gain by, and then we're going to go by -10. So this will make it 10 decibels quieter. But I know personally that I want to change it to -20 because it's even louder than that. And if I play this now, again, I don't know how much you hear. So let me turn this up actually.
Hey everybody, what is up? Wavejump here and welcome.
You notice, oops, sorry, you'll notice that that sounded better, but still this is louder than that. So one thing we could go ahead and do here, and I'm going to expand that as well so we can see, is we go ahead into what's called the audio track mixer. You remember that's something we pulled up earlier. And if you ever can't find any of the panels I talk about, make sure it's enabled here, and then it'll be somewhere on your screen. Anyways, you'll notice we have these different tracks here. And what I want to do is I want to select audio 2 track. And so if I look here, here's audio 2. Again, audio 2 is written right there. I'm just going to take audio 2 and I'm going to turn the volume down just that way. And, you know, if I play it, it's much quieter. Let's say I want to go ahead and turn it up here, and let's have it quiet down over time. This is where we're going to want an audio transition. And this is where our effects come in. So we're going to open our effects panel here. We're going to go to audio transitions, crossfade, and there are a couple of different ones. The ones that I like to use are constant gain and exponential fade. Now, exponential fade makes it fade out in exponential way, meaning that it'll start by fading out almost nothing, and then it'll start fading out really fast. Constant gain just fades out at a very constant rate. But let's say exponential fade. I'm going to drag this onto that clip there, and then we're going to go ahead and drag this guy out. Sorry by the way if my explanations aren't great. I'm really trying to make sure they're better today. But anyways, yeah, now if I play it, just like so.
Hey everybody, what is up?
So you'll notice this started quiet down as this was playing, and it should be good. One thing you'll also notice though is that there's this really jagged cut in between the intro and the rest of it. So one thing that we could go ahead and do to remedy that is go to our our FX panel again, and we're going to select video transitions, and then we're going to go ahead and choose one. Now, the way video transitions works, you just choose one, and similar to the way the audio transitions works, you just kind of drag it onto your clips. I like paint splatter, so we're just going to drag paint splatter in between these two clips. And if it doesn't work in between, just select it onto one of them. And so if I go ahead and play it, you notice it went ahead and put the paint splatter effect on. Now, as to why sometimes effects only work on one video and don't drag onto both, it's kind of confusing and not super easy to explain. But anyways, you'll notice I could go ahead, for example, and decrease the transition duration here by just moving that number down and double clicking on it. And you notice it moves faster. And there we go. Now, so we've gotten that basic stuff done, but say you want to edit a little part of a clip and cut a little part out. So let's find a part where I'm saying for example. And by the way I'm playing is I'm pressing space. You could also press K, and J will go ahead and rewind, L will go ahead and fast forward. And you can press those multiple times.
I'm not uploading a lot on this channel this week, but
so let's say we want to get rid of this here, right? So first off, I'm going to slide this little thing at the bottom here, which lets me go ahead and move around the timeline. I'm going to press plus a bunch to zoom in, and here's where I say right here. You notice there's audio waveform. That's when I'm talking. That's what it's called. right there. And you can hear me saying if I play it. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do is, here are little tools on this section here, and I'm gonna click what's called the eraser tool. And I'm gonna go ahead here and click on the beginning of the clip and the end of the little clip where I say and there we go. So now you'll notice I've created a little clip here that's separated from the rest of it. You'll notice because if I click on it, it's highlighted and the rest of it isn't. And then all I have to do is just press delete. And notice pressing delete will go ahead and force you to move this manually, which is fine, but one way you could also do it is if you could just right click on it and click ripple delete, and you'll notice it'll automatically get rid of that extra gap. But if you go to so if I play this now, this week, but if you go to my other channel, YouTube, yes, that works a bit. If I want to, I could also trim this down a bit by just dragging the edges of it and then move this over a bit here. But if you go to my other channel, and it's a bit less of a random gap there. So there's that. Let's say I wanted to go ahead and add an image over this, because I like to do comments of the day, right? And of course, by the way, this is a much more specialized tutorial than a lot of other tutorials you'll find. I'm just trying to cover a lot in a smaller amount of time. I'm going to right click import, and I'm going to find that image. So of course, video desktop, and select my image and import that. And I'm going to go ahead and drag this above my clip. So the way this works is that whatever is above something else will show up above that thing. So here's this comment of the day. I'm going to go ahead here and go to, what I'm going to want to do is double click on this. Yes, that'll just preview it over here. And yes, it's this really small little thing. So what you can do is we're going to go to our effect control section. Effect controls is one of the most important things in this because it allows you to do a lot. So if we go and take a look here, we have a couple of little folders kind of, but let's go to motion. If we open up motion, we have position and scale. So if we select scale and then drag on this number to slide it upwards, you notice this will get bigger. So let's have it about that size. And then position, if I click on position, then I can go ahead and then just drag this around. So let's say put this, I don't know, let's put it here. Actually, let's do that there, I don't know. And then what I could go ahead and do here is I could, I don't know, rotate a bit if I wanted to or whatever. You just change these settings. Let's say that our motion is good though. Opacity, pretty simple. Timer mapping, you don't need to change. But now I'm going to go ahead and have the screen under it blur when this happens. So there's a very simple way to do that, which is using another effect. So I'm going to go to Effects, Video Effects, Blur, and there are a couple of different blurs here, but we're going to use one called Gaussian Blur. Gaussian Blur just looks beautiful, I think, and it's the nicest looking blur probably that you'll find out of all these. It's just a really clean looking one. And you'll notice there's this little icon right here that's a stopwatch under blurriness. And if I click on that, that'll create what's called a keyframe. Now, keyframes are one of the more advanced concepts or at least intermediate concepts in video editing. But keyframes allow you to go ahead and, it's also used in animation, by the way, and have an effect apply over time or have something move automatically, basically. So what I'm going to go ahead and do here, I'm going to go to, I want this to go ahead and slowly blur in so that by the time the comment appears on screen, it is blurred. But actually, before we apply our blurriness, let's go to Effects and add a transition. Video transitions dissolve. We're just going to go ahead and add a cross dissolve, meaning this will go ahead and fade in like that. And just, by the way, if you're curious as to why when I'm scrubbing through it's a lower resolution, that's because I'm off resolution here. I've set this to full. It'll go ahead and show me full resolution, but of course this will be more taxing on your card, or your graphics card. So I'm going to want to go ahead and do is have this fade in with the stuff. So I'm going to go to Effects, Effect Controls, and select our clip, and click the stopwatch to create a keyframe for blurriness. Notice there's our keyframe right there, and what that means is that at that point blurriness should be at 0. So we're going to skip to the end of the transition, just like so here, and we're going to go ahead and increase blurriness, just like that. I words, don't worry. Now if I play this here, go to my other channel, youtube.com/thewavejump. And it took a little bit to render. Anyways, you notice it goes ahead and fades in together. And then I can go ahead and say by the middle of this, add another keyframe, and say have it even more blurred. And then at the very end of it, we'll go ahead and decrease the blurriness a little bit more. And then, actually wait, no, let's set this to 0 right here. And I'm going to go ahead and, of course, add another cross dissolve at the end of it, using this effects panel. Go ahead and have it fade out at the end. So now you notice if I were to go ahead and play this, I'm going to do it in a quarter resolution because it'll make it load faster. Here we go. Notice it faded in and the comment went in, and then it faded out and as the comment went out. And of course, You notice one of the main issues there was the fact that it started actually blurring out beforehand. So let's go ahead here, and if we go to our keyframe section, we're going to want to go ahead and go right here, and here we're going to add another blurriness keyframe. So if I were to go ahead and make this full screen, you notice I could click on all the keyframes, and the previous keyframe right here, if I could go ahead and double click on it, no, I can double click on it. If I were to go here, notice it's set to around 135-ish. But yeah, what we're going to go ahead and do though is just basically, we're going to go ahead here and copy this keyframe using Control-C, and then just paste it again around right here. And I'll go ahead here and make sure that it's delayed. Therefore, we're going to go ahead and want to move this even more. And again, I'm going to click plus here to go ahead and change the timescale, very similar to what we did earlier. And I'm going to go ahead and want to find where this fades out here. So that is about right here. I'm going to go ahead and add the blurriness keyframe there. And that's what will happen if I play this.
But if you go to my other channel, youtube.com/thewavejump,
and for some reason effects oftentimes don't render correctly. What'll happen though if I scrub through, you can see it stays very blurry until when it starts to fade out, in which case the blur disappears, which is fine, right? That's a really good way to do some blurring, and I'm just trying to give you all basic understanding of these effects. So all these effects work in a very similar way. You drag the effect on, you add keyframes, or just you could even do it without keyframes, and it's fine. But say I wanted to add some text over this. I'm going to go ahead and do here, and sorry if I'm speaking a bit loudly. I'm going to go to over here. Let's say find a nice. Actually, no, we're not going to use a transition or a preset effect. So these are presets, kind of. So if I were to go ahead and say drag in a film title on top right here, and this will pop up oftentimes. Just click cancel. You go ahead here, and it'll automatically blur in a little like title and episode, which are cool if you want to use those. But I'm personally, and I'm going to temporarily mute these guys. I'm going to temporarily go ahead and create my own little thing. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go to the beginning of this little screenshot. I'm going to go text, and I'm going to go ahead and type comment of the day. You notice there are a couple of different issues with this, one of which is that you can't really see the text, another of which is that it's way too small. So I'm going to go to align and transform first off, and I'm going to go ahead and center it vertically and horizontally. So now it's in the very center, and I'm going to go ahead and just use these little movement things and move this upwards. All right, so next up, you'll notice the font is really weird. So of course, you could just do normal font stuff. Let's change it to impact. Let's go ahead here, turn off the shadow, maybe change the fill color to black instead so that the text is black. And then we're going to change this little setting here called leading, I believe, and just go ahead and make it so that it's less ridiculously spaced. If I change this to like 0, there we go. And of course, I could also change line height and all sorts of other stuff. I could drag this, make it bigger and smaller. And let's go ahead and align it horizontally, and there we go. And you notice now one of the issues is that under dark stuff, it looks weird, so you could just add a white stroke to it. And there you go. You notice that kind of remedies that issue. Or I could go ahead and even add a little white glow around it, like so. And we even fix the issue in a better, cleaner looking way. It glows a little bit. Another thing you notice is that this comment of the day looks kind of meh. I'm going to go to effects. I'm going to go to video effects, and we're going to go ahead here and add an effect under stylize. And I personally like the rough edges effect whenever I do comments, so I've done that. And you notice one of the issues is that, again, you can't really tell where the comment begins and ends because of the background. So I'm going to go to effects. I'm going to select an effect called I'm going to go under perspective more so, and I'm going to enable drop shadow. If I add drop shadow, notice instantly there's a shadow around it. We're going to go ahead and, of course, change the effects here. So under drop shadow, I'm just going to go ahead here, and let's make it a little bit more obvious. Let's go ahead here. You notice I could change the direction to go ahead and spin this around a bit. Let's go ahead here. Let me change this back to 0, kind of. And if I change distance, it'll change how far away it is from it. And I could change softness as well. So there we go. I just created a little soft blur around it. I could increase the opacity to go ahead and make it a bit better. And yeah, you'll notice now that comment stands out. So if we go ahead and take a look as to our wonderful work so far, and of course you could follow along with similar footage like that I'm doing, or you could just watch it. There we go. You notice comment of the day pulls up, and then it disappears. But another issue with this text is that this text just kind of appears. So what we're going to go ahead and do is just copy the transition using Control-C or Command-C, and then just paste it onto the other clip, which I guess we can't do. Never mind, we're just going to go to Effects, Video Transitions, and select Cross Dissolve, and just drag it on top of the text here. You'll notice it'll turn green when I highlight over it, and there we go. just beginning and end, and now you notice that'll fade in at the exact same time and fade out at the exact same time. Very good, right? So I think that's most of the important stuff here. Notice we got fading done. We've covered cutting, transitions, importing media, keyframing, effects. I mean, I think we've covered a lot in the short period of time. One other thing you could do is you could do, of course, more audio effects and stuff. You could change audio gain, of course, but I think we covered most of what's important. Now, if there's something you want to know how to do in Premiere, go ahead and leave a comment in the comment section below, and I will go ahead and work towards making a video on that. The deal is, though, that it is not something that is ultra... Actually, there's one more thing I do want to cover, never mind, which is masking. This is something else you could do with effects, but say, for example, I were to go to this Patreon speak thing, and I wanted to go ahead and blur some out. I may have to blur some stuff out in this video, who knows, or in terms of this itself. Say, for example, I want to blur out the URL, because it's an unlisted video. I'd go ahead here, go to Video Effects, and actually, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and make a cut here. Because we had a Gaussian blur applied before, we're going to add a new Gaussian blur effect on this. We go to Effects here, Effect Control, sorry. Go ahead here and delete our Gaussian blur effect and add a new one to go ahead and kind of reset it so that we're dealing with a blank slate. You could add multiple blur different things on the thing, but it's easier if you don't. Anyways, we're going to go ahead here and we're just going to go ahead and just blur the entire bar for the whole video. So I'm just going to go ahead here. I'm going to click this little 4-point polygon mask button, or this little square. I'm going to go ahead and move this and drag it over so that, and we could go ahead here and make this full screen, again, using that button above the tab key or to the left of one, and I can just go ahead and drag the 4 points of this thing to select the bar. And now you'll notice here, if I were to go ahead and increase the blurriness of it, our title blur itself and only the title blur is blurred out. And I could also go ahead here and expand the mask a little bit, and would do what's called feathering it, which goes ahead and and changes how gradually it blurs, kind of. You'd go ahead here and yeah, again, mask expansion I didn't mention earlier, just the opacity of it. And yeah, of course I could also apply keyframes to the same thing. You'll notice masks can be pretty useful if you want to go ahead and just blur something very specific out, which I use in editing this video, or maybe not, because it kind of can be a pain to do. Anyways, I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you have, leave a like down below, subscribe if you haven't already. I will release more Premiere tutorials if this gets good feedback. And if you all want to see more specific stuff with Premiere, I could also cover a little bit of After Effects, I could cover some Photoshop. Yeah, I hope you have enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching. Bye!